Good morning and welcome back to the Good Morning Minute podcast. I'm your host, Angelina Mojica, and I'm excited to kick off season 2 with a theme that touches every single one of us: relationships. That's right, friends. Relationships are at the heart of our human experience. They shape who we are, how we grow, and how we show up in the world. Whether it's family, friends, romantic connections, or even the relationships we have with ourselves, each one carries lessons, challenges, and moments of pure joy. This season, we'll sit down with incredible guests who will share their stories, wisdom, and insights on building, nurturing, and even healing relationships. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's dive into conversations that inspire connection and growth. Now that we've set the stage for today's conversation on relationships, I'm thrilled to introduce our guest. She brings a unique perspective and a wealth of experience to the table, and I know her insights will leave you feeling inspired and equipped to navigate your own relationships with more intention and understanding. So please welcome with me Ana Ruiz to the Good Morning Minute podcast. Welcome, Ana, to the podcast. We are so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Angelina, for that introduction. And hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here and to share about my favorite topic, which is relationships.
Beautiful. And we're excited to have you and get to know some of your insights a little better. But first and foremost, I'd like you to just go ahead and give the audience a little introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why relationships piques your interest.
Yeah. Well, so I am a relationship coach, and I became a relationship coach because I just had a string of failed relationships. I had read the books, I had tried just so many different things. I watched videos, and I was actually very successful in my career. I was financially independent. I owned my own home. I had a great group of friends. And it just so happened that I had a string of failed relationships. And whenever I look for the future, I wanted a relationship. I didn't want to be single and by myself for the rest of my life. So that's how I became a student of relationships. And eventually I became a relationship coach. And before I became a relationship coach, I actually met a great man, and we've been together for 7 years. And I'm just honored to call him my husband. We're married. And so, why relationships? Well, when I think about it, is as human beings, we are not meant to live in isolation. Even when we were back like hundred and thousands of years, and we live in caves, we live in communities, we lived in relationships. And relationships, I think I know when I speak about myself personally, is my relationship is like a mirror. As I am somebody who likes to continue growing, I spend time and energy and money in just continue to grow. And my relationship is like a mirror to the blind spots, like the parts of myself where I can continue to grow, and that if I'm on my own, I don't see them. Um, Also, my relationship is a source of support in so many ways. I know that I have big dreams about what I want to do with my business, with my life. And if I was a one-man show, it would be really hard. And my husband supports me in so many ways, just from emotional support to practical things. And that's why really I'm so passionate about relationships.
Oh, that is so good. And just so inspiring just listening to that because you're someone that has gone through it, has experience. And so you're bringing in that life experience and insight as you help coach and, the educations and all that stuff, the learning component together to help coach others. I love that. So, Anna, tell me what would be maybe the most, I don't know, important foundation when it comes to healthy relationships from your perspective?
So, in terms of foundation, I consider that it's really important to be with a partner who wants the same kind of relationship that you do. And
Mhm.
what I mean by that is, if let's say you're dating someone who just wants to be a free spirit and go travel the world and explore, and you are someone who actually wants as a who wants commitment, who wants a family. um, the fact that that you have two very different goals for relationships is just going to make things really hard. So first of all, find someone who is aligned to the version of relationship that you want, who's aligned to the goals that you have when it comes to relationships.
I
Um,
like, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
of course, yeah, I'll let you ask.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like that. And it brings to mind being equally yoked. So you're looking for someone that has that same perspective, that same desire, and like you said, goals in regards to their relationship. So let's talk about the beginning because this needs to start. This is a conversation that needs to happen during the dating period or during, that initial engagement. So how do you start that? What does that look like?
Yeah, so, and I'm with you 100%. It has to start from the beginning. So it needs to start with getting clear in yourself about what you want. And the clients that I work with, I actually help them get clear to like making a list of like no negotiables,
Hmm.
which means what are the things that are deal breakers for them. So, to give you an example, I am someone who I don't want children. I don't have children of my own. I don't want to have children. And I also didn't want a partner who has children.
Mhm.
And the reason for that is because I actually had a really challenging childhood. So, I never felt capable to raise a child in a healthy way. And I also didn't want to spend the time learning how to do that
Hmm.
because I actually am learning about relationships and I'm learning about trauma, and I wanted to spend my time and energy in other things, right? So that was one of my known negotiables. And oftentimes, what happens is we come into like dating with such a strong desire for a relationship that we abandon ourselves and what we want. So, this is why it's just so important to have clarity about those no negotiables so that when you go out dating, you don't just meet someone who you have a connection, you feel the butterflies, you jump in with them, and then you forget about what you wanted, right? So it's kind of like going to the grocery store when you're hungry and you don't bring your shopping list, right? And then you start adding everything into the shopping cart. So dating is very similar. So that it's important to have clarity about what kind of relationship along the non-negotiables, what kind of relationship you want, so that you don't get in partner too quickly with someone who actually wants something else.
Hmm. I like the idea of when you go to the grocery store and you're shopping on an empty stomach, and so everything looks attractive and good, and it may not be good for you. You're just you're just throwing stuff into your basket.
Yeah.
Um, and I totally get it. I myself have been guilty of, oh yeah, that person's really attractive, and they they're Mr. Right Now, and it doesn't work out. Um, and as I've grown, I've learned to have those conversations because they're important. I've had some failed relationships myself, so I definitely want to pair myself with someone that is of like-mindedness. So I understand that. How do we as singles that are dating, how do we overcome the fear of loneliness so that we can be firm in those non-negotiables? Because sometimes we act out of desperation. Oh, we tell ourselves, I'm never gonna find the right one, so I might as well just settle for whatever's out there.
Yeah. So that is a great question. Usually, what happens is the first step is to be aware of that feeling of loneliness and to not make it wrong
Mm,
and to get curious about it. I know for myself, my loneliness, like I could just trace it back all the way back to when I was a child.
mm,
And I felt alone and I didn't have a lot of friends. So the once we have awareness is to do the work to understand where our loneliness comes from and to give ourselves understanding and compassion.
mm. I
And
like.
yeah, and like once we do that, that's like a medicine. Like
Mm,
I still have my loneliness come up once in a while, even though I'm in a relationship. Like if my husband is busy and he's doing things for several days in a row and I'm feeling kind of low, I can feel that loneliness kick in. The difference is now I can recognize it and I can sit with it and I can say, okay, we're lonely right now. We're going to be the best company for each other. We're going to
mm.
have a party together. And then that loneliness goes away. And I'm not putting that loneliness into my husband, right? Which
Mhm.
is why it's important.
I appreciate you saying that because loneliness is an emotion. It's a feeling that you go through, and you can go through it whether you are single or in a relationship. It is just it's a passing feeling. And I like that you talk about embracing it. Um, as opposed to being alone where you are in a single you're single. I think growing a comfort, and you talk about an appreciation of self-compassion and things like that, but growing in a place where you can sit alone and know that, hey, this is the time that I can spend on building myself up, because you have to practice on who you want to be in a relationship, because like you said, I myself come from a childhood trauma, so bringing that into a relationship, you need to know what you're about and what triggers you and what you don't like, so that you don't continue a life cycle pattern that has been passed on from generation to generation. Would you
Mhm.
agree?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that reminds me, we started talking about like what's important in a relationship, and
Mhm.
you talk about triggers and recognizing our own triggers and having a method to work on our triggers so that we don't come into a relationship and we're blaming our partner and we're pointing the finger at them. It's something that is just so important, and we haven't talked about the stages of relationships yet, but it's something that I will just circle back and talk about, like why it's so important.
Sure. Okay, so we're in the dating phase. We're having those non-negotiable conversations, and we're deciding, okay, this one's for me and this one's not for me. But when you find that person and you're stepping into a committed relationship, what's the next step?
Yeah. So the next step is, so you meet that person, you both agree to be exclusive with each other, and that's like the early stages of our relationship. And what's really important is, and this is something that I wish I had known a long time ago, is a relationship goes through stages, and that very first stage is what's called infatuation.
Mm,
And you're with that person and you're wearing those rosy glasses and you put them on a pedestal, you think that they're perfect. And that infatuation stage can last anywhere from weeks to months to years.
mm,
And it's a normal stage of our relationship. Actually, it is in our nature to procreate. So whether you can have children or not, whether you want children or not, the purpose of that infatuation is to procreate, um, to guarantee that as a species that we continue. So
mhm.
the best thing to do is to enjoy that infatuation stage and make sure that you're also staying grounded in yourself as a person so that you don't lose yourself. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. I often hear, and even when I do coaching with others, I often tell them, don't lose your independence because what you are when you are you're two complete individuals that are independently functioning, and you just decide to come together and be a couple. But you don't ever lose that independence because you have goals and you have dreams, and you don't want to ever just throw them away and make this person like your reason for living because that's when codependency starts happening. That's when other things start happening. So that's why you have to really decide that, okay, this is what I'm going to step into, but I'm not going to lose my focus and my dreams, just to have a relationship.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then what happens after the infatuation stage is what I call the power struggle stage. So usually, like either you moving together or one person or both people in the relationship have either financial stress or health or work stress or something happens in their family,
Mhm,
and that is usually is how like couples go from infatuation into power struggle. So now things get real. The rosy glasses, you took them off, and in that power struggle stage, what's going to happen is you start triggering each other, and
mhm,
then arguments happen, and then conflict happens. And that's where it's really important to have to know how to identify your triggers and work on yourself with your triggers, have tools to do that, and also to know how to repair conflict. Because this power struggle stage is where couples either make it or break it,
mhm,
um, and and or couples just stay together for a long time, but they're unhappy with each other, and they get married, and eventually they will probably get divorced.
mhm,
So this is why it's just so important to know how to work with your own triggers and how to repair conflict.
mm. So you mentioned divorce, and I'm curious, like, because that tends to be like the ending, the ending cycle of a relationship. Um, So how do you coach your people that are going through divorce? What are some of the suggestions, or what are some of the experiences that have been shared with you? Because I know for myself, I've been through three divorces, and each of them were unique in their own perspective. Uh, and some hurt more than others for me, for sure. So but it is an adjustment because now you're going back into singlehood. Now you're going back into being alone. So what is that transition like? What are some of the things that you work with your couples on?
Yeah. So I find that, well, first of all, I'm not against divorce.
Mhm,
I do understand that there are couples who they just can't live together anymore. They can't be in a relationship anymore. Their own nervous systems are just so exhausted from having endless conflict, that what they need is actually a separation. And what I do recommend couples is, um, first of all, to find a skill couples coach to help them. Whether they stay together or not, it doesn't matter. Oftentimes, it's better if they end up going through a divorce where they already did work together and they can be amicable to each other, especially if they have children, right?
Mhm.
Oftentimes people think of divorce as this is my exit from this situation. So again, my suggestion is that they work on the relationship, um, and then see what happens. I have worked with couples who were on the verge of divorce. They had been fired by their couples therapist, two couples therapists. And when they came to work with me, I actually was able to help them. And they had been married for 17 years when they came to work with me. And they actually stay together. They learn a way to make their marriage work,
Mhm.
and they're still together. I worked with them about this one couple, about 5 years ago. And once in a while, I still get emails from them telling me just how they're doing really well.
Mm.
So, and what happens is for two people who are in a relationship, they're thinking about divorce, or they're in a cycle of endless fights, they just don't know how to get out of that cycle. So that's why it's important to work with someone who's skilled at being able to see both of them as a nervous system that keeps triggering each other.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, the relationship is not working, not because they don't want to, but because they have a history of trauma that goes way, way, way back.
Mm.
And it's really hard to navigate it, when you don't have the experience, when you haven't done the research, when, like, this is what I do for a living, right? I'm constantly reading and researching and doing my own work so that I can come in and be, in a way, like the emotional regulator who can help them see what's going on in their dynamic and help them and empower them to, um, to step up.
I like that. And I guess that just kind of goes back to what we said in the beginning as far as still maintaining independence. Like you want to be able when you step into the relationship at a date from the dating start, uh understanding who you are and what you're bringing to the table. Now, not many of us understand that or have that self-awareness, obviously, because then you have those triggers and the cycles and all those things, and that's okay. But when you're at this point of separation or at this point of divorce, coming to a mediator, a relationship coach, someone that can help bring a different perspective, an outsider looking in could help. And a relationship that has lasted 17 years, there's a lot invested in that. Like I appreciate people that have been in relationships for longevity, 17, 20 years. I mean, I think that's such a blessing for sure, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It is hard work, and it's getting down and having tough conversations, being able to be honest and transparent and tell each other what's working, what's not working, but still be committed to the relationship enough to say, okay, let's get help because this is worth salvaging. And so I appreciate this insight very, very much. What what are some strategies, let's say, someone is too afraid to step out and find a coach to help them in these situations. What are some strategies out there that you would suggest to our listeners just to kind of help them in navigating through these conflicts?
Um, just so that I understand your question, are you asking like when somebody is like afraid of like reaching out for help?
Yeah. So, because some people are maybe too intimidated to talk openly to a third party about what's going on, and they want to be able to do it within the family unit or within their couple unit. So, what would be some strategies that you would suggest? I mean, I know that working with someone is the best resource for sure, but maybe somebody's just not ready for that. So, what would be a strategy?
Yeah, like if someone is not ready, I know for myself, I had to start by building trust
Mhm.
on a stranger, right? So I remember when I first hired my first relationship coach, he's actually someone that I watch videos. I watched like so many videos of like his work and him in front of the camera. And it took some time for me to build the courage to like reach out for help. And once I reached out to him for help, I remember having a call with him where I was really in touch with, do I feel safe with this person? And I always say that be ready to turn someone down if you don't feel safe with them, if you don't feel a connection, if you don't feel like that person really understands
Mm.
the struggles and the challenges that you're going through. But it really has to be like my advice would be to take baby steps, to
Mhm.
trust your fear, and when you're ready, take those baby steps to connect, to do your homework and find like watch podcasts like this, right? Meet different people until you find that person that you want help from.
Mm. I like that. All right. So what kind of advice would you give maybe your younger self, someone that is just trying to figure it out? What would that advice be on relationships?
So my advice to her, gosh, there's so many things. As a
They're all
rela
they're all coming up.
as a relationship coach, I just wanna tell her so many things. So my number actually, I know that now. The number one thing I would tell her is to reach out for help. Because I remember I was trying to figure things out on my own and reading books. And when I look back, there are people that are so experienced when it comes to relationships that I think if I had started my journey of starting relationships within a school a lot sooner, I think I was 42 when I was actually starting to study relationships. And if I had gotten that help a lot sooner, I think I would be in a very different place now. Who
Hmm.
knows?
Education does wonders. It really does because it always, you always self-reflect on some things. And I think that's been something that has grown my self-awareness for sure. Okay, Anna, if there are anything like that you have coming up, is there anything that you would like to share with our listeners? How can they get in touch with you outside of this podcast?
Yeah, so the one thing that I have coming up is I'm in the process of writing my book memoir, and my goal is to have it published sometime fall or winter of this year. So if people want to learn more about my story, to stay tuned and for that.
Awesome. And if I have a listener out there that's like, hey, I would love to connect with you as a relationship coach or whatever, just to get that expertise, how can they reach you?
So the best way to reach me is to go to my website, which is anaruiz.life. So just like my name, anaruiz.life. And you can book a session and come chat with me for free. We will meet and talk about what are your relationship challenges, what results you want to get, where you want to be, and we'll just take it from there. It's a free call, and it's just a great way to for you actually to get clarity by the end of our call on what has been holding you back.
Love it. All right, everyone, that is a wrap. I am Angelina Mojica, your life coach, sending you much love, much peace, many blessings.